You know that feeling when you're totally stuck on a problem, but then you grab a couple of friends to brainstorm and boom, you solve it in minutes? Well, it turns out AI is learning that exact same lesson. Today, we're going to dive into how teams of AI agents are starting to work together, to debate, and to solve problems in ways a single AI just never could.
We've all heard this saying, right? It's pretty much the perfect way to understand this huge shift that's happening in artificial intelligence. See, instead of just relying on one giant, super smart AI, researchers are finding that getting multiple AIs to collaborate, well, it often leads to way better, much more accurate results. And this is the core idea. It's called multi-agent large language models, or MA-LLMs for short. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a project meeting at work. You've got this group of AI agents in a virtual room, and they're all talking, arguing, and building on each other's ideas to get to that final answer. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at how these AI teams are actually put together. Who's in the room. Then we'll get into the different ways they make that final call. We'll also cover the pitfalls, because just like human meetings, these can go totally off the rails. And we'll wrap up with a peek into the incredible future of this tech.
Okay, so a good team isn't just a random bunch of people, right? It's a group where everyone has a specific role. And it's the exact same thing for AI. To have a really productive debate, developers actually assign specific jobs to each agent in that virtual meeting room.
First up in our meeting room, we've got the idea generator. And the researchers gave it this cheeky nickname, the beer bicep. So this agent's entire job is to just get the ball rolling. It throws out potential solutions without overthinking things too much. It's basically the creative engine of the group, just focused on generating possibilities for the rest of the team to chew on.
Of course, any good brainstorm needs a critic. This role is kind of like the red team or the devil's advocate. The source material calls it the leader of the opposition.
And its purpose is simple. Find the flaws. It meticulously pokes holes in every suggestion, looking for logic gaps and factual errors. This critical eye is absolutely essential for making sure the final answer isn't just creative, but actually correct.
So you've got ideas and critiques flying back and forth like crazy. To break a deadlock, you're going to need a judge. The source gives it a really specific nickname, the Arnab Goswami, which is a fun nod to a famous Indian news anchor who's known for moderating some seriously intense debates. This agent is basically the impartial referee. It watches the whole debate, listens to all the arguments, and then it steps in to make the final decisive call. Its job is to end the debate and declare a winner. Okay, so we've got our team. Everyone has their job. But how does the group actually land on one single final answer? Well, there are a few different ways to do it. The two most common methods are consensus and majority voting. With consensus, it's pretty intense. The agents have to keep debating until every single one of them agrees on the answer. Majority voting is simpler. Everyone just throws in their answer, and the most popular one wins. And as you can see, each one is better for different kinds of problems. Now, this is what's really interesting. Look at the trade-offs. Consensus is fantastic for factual stuff because it's like a built-in fact check. But man, it can be slow and lead to groupthink. Voting, on the other hand, is great for logic puzzles because you get all these different ideas, but it can get tricked if a wrong answer becomes popular. And the judge? Perfect tiebreaker. But that final decision is only as good as the judge's own bias. So you might be thinking, just add more agents. The more the merrier, right? Well, not exactly. It turns out there's kind of a magic number. The sweet spot for an AI team is usually just 3 to 4 agents. Any more than that, and you start to get that too many cooks in the kitchen problem. And that brings us to a super important point. Just like our meetings at work, these AI debates can go completely haywire. They can get sidetracked, they can become totally unproductive, and end up wasting a whole lot of time and computing power. So here's the critical question. A little debate is good, we know that. But what happens when it just goes on and on and on? Does the answer just keep getting better? The research says a big, fat no. In fact, it can get much, much worse. This whole phenomenon has a name. It's called problem drift. It's what happens when a team starts out super focused, but after a few rounds of talking, these tiny misunderstandings just lead them further and further away from the original goal. Basically, they've lost the plot and are now trying to solve a completely different and often totally irrelevant problem.
And this shows you exactly how it happens. It's just like that telephone game we all played as kids. A tiny little error in an early round gets repeated, then it gets amplified by the next agent, and then the next, until the entire conversation has just spiraled down this rabbit hole of misinformation.
So if team size has a sweet spot, it makes sense that the length of the debate does too. To avoid that problem drift, most studies are finding that the best results pop up after just 2 or 3 rounds of discussion. Any more than that, and you actually start to see performance drop off a cliff.
Okay, so now that researchers know about these problems, they're coming up with some really clever strategies to keep these AI meetings on track. Let's take a look at how they're making them more efficient, cheaper, and ultimately a whole lot smarter.
You can think of these as smart meeting management hacks for AIs. The system can just automatically end a debate once everybody agrees. No need to waste time. Or, get this, it can literally fire an agent mid-debate if it's just repeating itself or is consistently wrong. They're even using memory tricks to help the team remember the original goal without getting lost in the weeds. So where is all this headed? Well, the goal isn't just to have these small, efficient teams. The real roadmap for the future is about building AI teams that are way bigger, have much deeper expertise, and are less likely to fall for those all-too-human biases. And this is where it gets really, really exciting. Researchers are working on training agents on data from actual surgeons or engineers, not just reading about them. They're trying to figure out how to manage mega teams of thousands of agents to tackle huge problems, like designing an entire computer operating system from scratch. They're also actively trying to program independent thinkers to fight against digital peer pressure. And maybe most importantly, they're working on making this powerful tech affordable for everybody, not just giant corporations. It's an incredible look at the power of working together, whether you're human or not. But it does leave us with one final fascinating question to think about. We're getting pretty good at managing these small AI teams, but as they grow from small groups into massive, complex digital cities full of AI agents, how are we going to manage them? How will we make sure they stay on track and work for us to build a